What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast. We talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and all week long, I'm joined by Daniel Acevedo. What's going on, sir?
Guys? Going good. Let's get it going.
Yes, sir. So definitely continue to tune in throughout the week. So Monday, Tuesday, our topics. Wednesday, discussion. Thursdays, Ask a CISSP. This week, I'm not sure if it's going to be a brand new one with the team from Black Girls Hack or an oldie but a goodie, just because it might take me a little bit longer to edit that one. I'll have on their C-suite and senior leadership, so I'll have on 4 guests. So it'll be the first time I've done that, so it might take me a little bit longer to edit, but I'm super excited that they're spending their time with me to talk about all their upcoming initiatives and just what their nonprofit does for the community. And then Fridays, everything else, so movies, books, games, all that good stuff. But with that being said, please help us to hit 500 subs. That's what we're trying to do by the end of the month. We're about 85 or so short. We want to get to 500, so that way by the end of the year we can hit 1,000 is what we're going for. So please like, share, subscribe, leave us a rating somewhere, some stars of some sort, things of that nature. But without further ado, this article comes from the Hacker News. So this one is titled "Why Regulated Industries Are Turning to Military-Grade Cyber Defenses." So a little bit misleading, I think the title is. I think it's more to the point that they're starting to do more information sharing. They're starting to use military tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? TTPs, not necessarily purchasing military-grade equipment. Because when I was reading through it, I was like, well, they're not going to get their hands on a Type 1 encryptor. Like, that's not going to happen, right? Those are controlled by NSA. They're not just going to give them to, I don't know, Spectrum to protect the network, right? But I get what they're trying to get across, right? They're trying to say that they're using more tactics and procedures that the military uses, which I see that a lot in the industry as well, right? When you read through people's business continuity plans and cyber defense policies, a lot of it is operations heavy because it either adopted strategies from the military or, for the most part, they have military members who've joined their company who've brought these strategies with them. So I always find that interesting. I'm actually reading through a friend of the podcast book right now, and a lot of it is very military operation centric. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. It's good to see this being brought into the private sector. But how do you feel about this, Daniel?
Yeah, it's interesting because I take my previous role, right? Like I was heavy into the GRC community, right? I was at ISM, right? And I think there's not a disconnect, but there's definitely probably a better way for the GRC and maybe a cybersecurity community with intelligence overhead to run smoother for some private organizations, and the benefit of information sharing and kind of like stepping back and seeing a wider view of how all of those things interconnect and how the different, parameters of each section benefit each other for protecting an organization, right?
Right.
In the article itself, it talks about different tools they would like to use, and they talk about like cross-domain solutions and those kind of things. And obviously, like you said, they wouldn't get what the government has, right, to offer, right? Especially from an intelligence perspective, because, the intelligence organizations that are pulling for the government are the government's intelligence organizations, right?
Right.
But, developing their own and then going with strong models like defense in depth and zero trust, I think from a heavily regulated organization where you're talking about, either defense contracting or hospitals or those kind of things where they have to adhere to like strong policies and enforce those things, sometimes maybe the message gets lost of like, hey, we passed our 853 assessment or CMMC or whatever. So
Right.
We must have a strong cybersecurity posture. We must have a strong insider threat policy posture, right? And I feel like the GRC is like the strong foundation and the beginning of how everything gets enforced to make sure there's a good baseline. But as security professionals, that's just the beginning, right? What this article is alluding to is like going above that and then using all the other tools that are out there from the other organizations to really bring up our organization into the 27th millionth century, right? So that you're really protected from things that we don't know that are coming down the line, whether it be like AI in the future or, really advanced ATPs from, foreign actors targeting different organizations out there. That's what we're trying to go towards. So what do you think, Ryan?
No, I agree. So, and I think a lot of it comes down to culture. So it's about changing the mindset that this is my separate, fiefdom, and I can't share information. I can't share secrets and things of that nature
Mm.
without compromising my IP. You really have to band together, and that's what the military community does. Even though we're a bunch
Mhm.
of separate branches, there's a lot of cross sharing and utilization, right, to help protect each other's back, right. Um, so I think a lot of that's going to actually start to be pulled down to the private sector only because of how desperate the situation is, right? Like they're losing billions of dollars every year due to cyber breaches. They're losing the trust of customers, so that they're not getting repeat clientele and things of that nature. It just makes it really hard to grow into hopefully one day being a Microsoft, an Apple, or an Nvidia of the future when you're bogged down by litigation, you're bogged down by things that are kind of out of your scope and scale. So um, there has to be some kind of pooling of collective knowledge sharing, information, things of that nature to help protect everyone, especially because it goes beyond just being you, and it's more of being we when it comes to defense, because it is national defense, regardless of if you're a private company or not. Especially when it comes to the stealing of people's PII and things of that nature, which we saw 23andMe get hit. We saw the credit, I forget which credit bureau was hit.
Oh yeah.
Recently, we had the humongous snowflake, or potentially humongous snowflake data breach, which was to no, right now, it's speculated to no fault of their own, right? But it impacts potentially millions of accounts. Uh, so it's getting really tough out here, and we cannot rest on our laurels, and we cannot fight the battle alone. So there has to be more sharing. There has to be cross domain solutions put together. There has to be a safer internet, whether that be TIC 3.0 or whatever the
Yeah.
future that was that trusted internet connection 3.0 or whatever the future holds for web 3.0. Just because of how dire the situation is becoming. This week when I was putting together to run a show, there's so many breaches. There's so many. In the past 7 days, I was like, I don't want to cover any of these. That's all we've been doing. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I want to cover something that's a little bit different. And I think this article does highlight the need to be more military. I guess flexible, adaptable, have some of that agility built in when it
Yeah.
comes to their techniques, procedures, just because of you can't go alone. It's just undoable. And then, like you said, zero trust is a must going forward. That model definitely is bleeding over from the DoD into the private sector.
Yeah, especially in like in the in the article it alludes to like industries such as finance, healthcare, and government, right? All these have NIST or compliance behind it, whether it be HIPAA or PCII or the payment card.
Right.
I feel like that's one thing. And a lot of times I run into the same issue when I talk to people from different organizations, or you talk to directors or things like that of like security organizations, is that sometimes the organization gets kind of hyper focused on, hey, we need to protect whatever data that is classified as a secret or falls within those parameters for that compliance. But organizations forget that, hey, that's one asset of it, right? But if you're a private organization that has some proprietary information, you're doing yourself a disjustice just because that is, termed unclassified. But for your organization, your, secret sauce, if it's not
Right.
classified, but that's what makes you the money, and you're not protecting it or taking it as seriously as those other pieces of information that you need to protect, then you're doing yourself a disservice really badly. So I see that.
Yeah.
I run into that a lot as well within these organizations that are kind of like dual-hatted, where they have a private side of the business, but they also do dealings with the government. So they segregate their data, which is great, but you also should take care of unclassified data just as much as you would anything that's classified or falls within that GRC or compliance side of the house.
Right. And I see, or I guess I can foreshadow that like CMMC, which is a big push right now in the DoD, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what is that? That's the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification 2.0, will bleed over into the private sector. Like it's going to happen. So just like you said, like whatever they deem to be classified, was it CUI? Was that?
True, yeah,
Yeah,
control unclassified information.
there it is. and things of that nature. Like they're going to be adapting the same type of principles, I think, in the private sector, even if they're not in bed with the federal contracting or things of that nature, just because that model makes sense. And there's going to be a lot of experts in that field in the near future, like Chris Abercon currently got his CCP and things of that nature. But I think a lot of that's going to start to bleed over too, just like zero trust, just like a lot of the other strategies to risk mitigation, right? To avoid risk and things of that nature. So I think that's the future, and it's definitely going to trickle over. So we'll start to see it a little bit now, just with those companies that do have dealings with the federal sector, and they'll start to use it on their private sector stuff as well. But I think then it'll start to rush to the private sector. So be prepared for that as well. I think the future is promising. So especially with all the, like, again, daily breaches, daily zero vulnerability. Like every day there's something. There's a zero. I think there was a 0-day attack not too long ago. I saw that one pop up too, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna wait till that settles to see how bad it was, and then we can talk about it next week or the week after. So
at the very least, I hope the security awareness and understanding of the generations, of the older generations and the younger generations that are in the workforce, starts to bleed over, and everybody has a better understanding, especially with AI coming down the line, of how to better protect your own personal information out there, your digital footprint, your endpoints in your house, and that translates to the workplace as well. Because if not, I mean, if that literacy isn't there, it's going to be a very scary place for a lot of people coming the next 5 years, forget about the next 10 years, the next 3 to 5 years. It's like huge changes that are coming down the line. So
we'll see. I think that also, I was going to say, I think that also bleeds into work from home, but that could be another 10-minute conversation.
For real. Yep, definitely.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. Again, it'll be me and Daniel all week. So Monday, Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion, Thursdays Ask a CISSP. It'll either be a flashback. I was like, what did I used to call them? A throwback. So it'll either be a throwback to one of the many great ones that I had in the past, or it'll be the most recent one. But again, I'm going to have your leadership team from Black Girls Hack on the podcast. So very excited about that. Just not sure if it's going to debut the same week or if it's going to be the next week. So stay tuned for that. And then go back and listen to the previous one. So I had on Mariah Simone Denton from Global Patch. So she's the president and founder of Global Patch, and they're big into esports, video games, and it kind of bleeds over into multi-domain media, as well as IT and cybersecurity. So definitely very interesting conversation with Mariah Simone. And then Friday's everything else. So movies, twists, games, all that good stuff. So continue to tune in, get us to 500 subs by the end of the month. Stay safe, stay secure.